Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Happy day 2 of the AVPN Global Conference. We will begin shortly at the plenary. Good morning to everyone. If you can hear our voices, this is Hanis and Brendan, your MCs for the day.
Yes, please, if I could encourage you to please move towards the front, towards the center, really fill these seats and so that you can get a real front row view of the performance that's about to happen.
You guys are in for a real treat, so I hope that you are ready. Ladies and gents, to those who are still at the foyer, please do feel free to grab your coffee and head on into the plenary, where we will start in just a few short moments. Make sure you get the best seats in the hall because, of course, as always, we are bringing to you Malaysia specials not to be missed. So make sure that you get the best seats in the room.
Please come in, folks. Before they close the doors, come in, get a great seat.
A very, very warm welcome to the 2023 AVPN Global Conference in the vibrant city of Kuala Lumpur. This year, we gather under the inspiring theme of Global Challenges, Asian Solutions, where we will explore the continuum of capital from philanthropy to CSR to impact investing and ESG. Here, at this unique gathering, Asia Pacific, our region, takes center stage, where the incredible potential of all of our countries is showcased and where innovative solutions to global challenges are celebrated.
The theme of my speech today is really about the Hasana story, thinking global and acting local in philanthropy and innovation. It underscores the meaning of our collaboration and enduring partnership with AVPN and other global networks and philanthropies around the world, which is to enhance the social impact landscape in Malaysia.
We do measure both quality and impact. And the purpose of it was to see that how we can have social change and impact in our own lifetime. And this can only happen when it's working in partnership with people gathered around here.
anyone who's still out there at the foyer, please, can I encourage you to come on in, take a seat, fill out this middle area, come up towards the front, get a great view of the performance. Thank you.
Welcome to the 2023 AVPN Global Conference in the vibrant city of Kuala Lumpur. This year, we gather under the inspiring theme of Global Challenges, Asian Solutions, where we will explore the continuum of capital from philanthropy to CSR to impact investing and ESG. Here, at this unique gathering, Asia Pacific, our region, takes center stage, where the incredible potential of all of our countries is showcased and where innovative solutions to global challenges are celebrated.
The theme of my speech today is really about the Hasana story, thinking global and acting local in philanthropy and innovation. It underscores the meaning of our collaboration and enduring partnership with AVPN and other global networks and philanthropies around the world, which is to enhance the social impact landscape in Malaysia.
We do measure both quality and impact. And the purpose of it was to see that how we can have social change and impact in our own lifetime. And this can only happen when it's working in partnership with people gathered around here.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, delegates. If you're still at the foyer, please come and join us. If you're still at the door, please come forward to get the best seats in the room. And with that, we have a special video in which we'll play one more time for those who have just joined us.
This year, we gather under the inspiring theme of Global Challenges, Asian Solutions, where we will explore the continuum of capital from philanthropy to CSR to impact investing and ESG. Here, at this unique gathering, Asia Pacific, our region, takes center stage, where the incredible potential of all of our countries is showcased and where innovative solutions to global challenges are celebrated.
The theme of my speech today is really about the Hasana story, thinking global and acting local in philanthropy and innovation. It underscores the meaning of our collaboration and enduring partnership with AVPN and other global networks and philanthropies around the world, which is to enhance the social impact landscape in Malaysia.
We do measure both quality and impact. And the purpose of it was to see that how we can have social change and impact in our own lifetime. And this can only happen when it's working in partnership with people gathered around here.
Respected delegates, a very good morning.
Dan Salam Malaysia Madani. Welcome to day 2 of
AVPN
Global Conference 2023.
Could I ask everyone here who is on the wings to please stand up briefly and just move towards the center?
And why is this? Because we are about to showcase, such an incredible showcase of art. And in my experience last night watching the rehearsals, it's best to be viewed here.
Agreed.
In the middle.
It's something to see for
let's
sure.
Squeeze in together, if that's possible.
Thank you so much, everyone.
How's everyone doing? Everyone doing okay? That's the most okayest okay I've ever heard.
Let's try it again.
Everyone doing okay? That's the spirit.
Perfect. Let's get started. My name is Brendan Culleton. I recently moved here from the US to join AVPN's partnerships team, and I am thrilled to be joining all of you today to be learning more about the philanthropy and the impact investing sector.
Brendan, and my name is Hanis from Yayasan Hasanah, a foundation of Khazanah Nasional Berhad. Welcome speakers, delegates, viewers at home watching the live stream, and of course, our media friends. And Brendan, once again, on behalf of Yayasan Hasanah, we are incredibly thrilled to be co-hosting AVPN this year. Such an exciting moment for the social impact scene in the country, as it's the first time that this conference is brought to Malaysia.
That's right, Hannes. And this year, the conference is also bringing something new to the table, a new dimension to our global dialogue.
Now, Brendan, I'm super excited for what awaits us at the opening show. I've seen a sneak peek, as I said, and it was amazing. As we know, the theme for the conference this year is Global Challenges, Asian Solutions. Fittingly, today's opening show invites us to explore human connections that transcends cultures, yet we embrace local wisdom for a more inclusive and sustainable future.
Before diving into more details about our performance, I just wanted to give a little intro to what we're going to be covering today. Over the past 20 years, impact investing has grown from an experimental form of capital deployment to an increasingly mainstream tool to achieve meaningful impact at scale. From foundations to government agencies to commercial investors, the breadth of impact investing organizations and the sophistication of impact investing tools has enabled the impact enterprise ecosystem to flourish globally and in Asia specifically. AVPN has increasingly worked across the continuum of capital to support this incredible growth. AVPN is excited to launch this inaugural Impact Investing Day, a track we intend to host at all of our conferences moving forward. And
that is super exciting, super exciting. I think this is a moment that makes history at the conference, and also making history is our Malaysia special as part of our collaboration, in which I'm sure we're all can't wait to experience. Ladies and gents, to those who are just going into the conference, please fill in the seats. Now, Brendan, are you ready for the opening show today?
yes.
Can I tell you more?
Yes, please.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to experience is a multimedia art piece that combines video art installation and a captivating live vocal performance. Now, commissioned by Yayasan Hasanah and produced by Malaysian artists Nandita Solomon and Dain Said, along with the designer Faris Hanapiah and composer Goli Kwang, this work features the mesmerizing vocals of the KL Young Singers and Aswaras Vocal Ensemble. And for that, Brendan, I think we have a couple reminders. Because it's such an auditory journey, we want to remind everyone to
Silence your cell phones and please put them away.
yes. And Brendan, this is as authentic as it can be.
Yes, and I hear it incorporates real images from Alfred Wallace's extraordinary natural history collection, currently housed in the British Museum and the Natural History Museum in London.
Yes, definitely, indeed. Now, this showcase features the untold story of Ali Wallace, a boy from Sarawak who, together with the English naturalist Alfred Wallace, collected and documented over 5,000 birds across the Malay archipelago. Titled Imagining Ali Wallace, it highlights the significance of indigenous wisdom, thus fostering equitable outcomes in global development. Now, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the music, enjoy the visuals, enjoy the experience. Kickstarting Day 2 of the conference, we present you Imagining Ali Wallace.
Butterflies is not large, but I obtained some rare and very handsome insects, the most remarkable being the Ornithoptera brookiana, the species which was then quite new and which I named after Sir James Brooke.
One of the most curious and interesting reptiles which I met wild in Borneo was a large tree frog, which brought to me by one of the Chinese workmen. This, I believe, is the first instance known of a flying frog. It would appear to be a new species of the genus Rhacophodus.
One of my main objects coming to Simunjan was to study this orangutan, great man-like ape in Borneo, in his native haunts, to study his habits and collect his specimens.
A few hours beyond Chahi, we passed the limits of cultivation and had to the beautiful virgin forest coming down to the water's edge, with its palms and creepers, its noble trees, its ferns and epiphytes.
Berdiri aku di tebing bumi Sarawak, sebelum aku merentas lautan Nusantara, Aku meminta berkat dari semangat laut. Aku kemudi sehingga ke hujung yang tidak menentu.
It was in Sarawak in 1855 I engaged a Malay youth named Ali as my cook, translator, and Malay language tutor.
Di Makassar, aku berjumpa seorang Bugis yang membawa kami dengan perahunya belayar 1000 batu ke Kepulauan Aru. Pak Wallace percaya pada aku. Begini aku mula belajar seni dia, memburu, mengering, menyat dan menama. Hidup ini perlulah tekun dan teliti, seperti kerja Pak Wallace. Ikut kata dia, disitulah di mana Tuhan dia.
After a year, Ali became my headman. He could turn his hand into anything. He was a good shot and was fond of shooting.
Makassar malang sekali buat kami. Pak Wallace demam, aku jaga. Aku demam, Pak Wallace jaga. Rezeki kami pun terbang.
After having cured Ali, we kept moving. It was on Bachan that Ali made his greatest discovery.
Sejak aku anak kecil lagi, aku ada dengar kisah burung-burung ajaib dari laskar dan pelaut yang pulang dari Mereki. Burung cendrawasih namanya, luar biasa kata mereka. Rupa-rupanya cerita awak-awak itu memang benar.
Ali!
Yes, Pak Wallace.
Wait up, my boy.
Maaf, Pak. Saper mungkin lambat sedikit malam ini. Tapi Ali sudah ajar budak baru itu untuk siapkan makan malam kita.
Budak baru itu masaknya belum cukup sedap lagi ya.
How's your day, sir?
Buang masa saja duduk di dalam hutan hari ini. Satu damn beetle pun tidak ada keluar. Sayang, tempat ini bukan seperti di peninjau.
Tengok, mungkin ini boleh naikkan semangat Pak sedikit. Ali sudah memburu di dalam hutan, akhirnya dapat juga.
I was completely puzzled. I saw a bird with a mass of splendid green feathers on its breast, elongated into two glittering tufts. But What I could not understand was a pair of long white feathers which stuck straight out from each shoulder.
Pak Wallace tidak pernah jumpa burung ini?
Tidak, Ali. Ini pertama kali untuk saya melihat burung paling luar biasa ini. Luar biasa. I recalled that
Orang
Ali
Maluku
told
tidak pernah bosan
tales
mendengar
to
kisah
the
harimau.
Malukan natives.
Mereka tidak pernah
recounting
lihat seekor
strange
pun dalam hidup
adventures
mereka.
with tigers.
Aku pernah
He
singgah di
declared that
Singapura
these
dengan
tigers
Wallace.
were men
Dengan
who had
mata
been
aku
great
sendiri, aku
magicians who
melihat
changed
seekor
themselves into tigers
Ramai
to
orang
eat
Nusantara kita
their
percaya pada
enemies.
semangat binatang sebagai
These
pelindung yang
tales were
berbahaya.
accepted as
Makhluk-makhluk
literal
jadian yang
facts
datang
by
daripada
his
alam
hearers
semesta.
and listened to with breathless attention and awe. On reaching Sarawak early in December, Sir James Brooke invited me to his cottage in Peninjau. Later, I returned to the mountain with Charles and a Malay boy named Ali.
Peninjau sangat curam, gunung batu bersegi tiga, diliputi hutan lebat. Kita melalui 3 umat panjang Dayak, lalu sampai ke rumah istirahat Raja Brooke.
But what occupied me most was the great abundance of moths. As during the whole of my 8 years' wanderings in the East, I never found another spot where these insects were at all plentiful. After my long experience, my numerous failures, and my one success, strange to say, I was never once able to make any collection of moths approaching those at Sarawak.
Selepas peninjau, aku mengiringi Pak Wallace dalam perjalanannya ke tempat-tempat yang lumayan jauh. Let's journey together. Let's go.
Give it up once again to Imagining Ali Wallace.
What an electric opening. A Malaysia special we won't soon forget. Thank you for sharing this amazing work and history with us today.
Incredible. Something that we won't soon forget. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on your seats earlier, you would find more information about the spectacular showcase earlier. And with that, we move on to the next agenda of the day.
Can I get another round of applause for Imagining Ali Wallace?
They deserve it, truly. Goosebumps, I tell you.
I now want to welcome AVPN's Chief of Sustainable Finance, Komal Sahu, on stage to introduce you to today's events and explain why AVPN believes it is so important to highlight the work of impact investment this year. Komal has leveraged over 2 decades of investment and social finance experience in Europe, Asia, and now the US to curate today's programming and events. Please join me in welcoming Komal and thanking her for the enormous efforts to bring this amazing convening to fruition.
Thank you, Brendan. Salamat datang. I'm truly honored to welcome all of you to be part of this momentous occasion, our inaugural Impact Investing Day. I must say, I feel a rush of excitement and gratitude as I stand before a remarkable gathering of dynamic and influential individuals. Yesterday, we were privileged to hear from a number of esteemed speakers, such as Ajay Piramal. For instance, he emphasized the importance of business being a force for good and highlighted, while profit is vital, like oxygen, we must leverage it to drive social change. We also heard from Gabriel Leung from the Hong Kong Jockey Club. He pointed out you have to do well in order to do good. Well, at AVPN, we understand impact investing is deeply rooted in the intention to create positive outcomes. It's not merely about financial gains, it's to generate measurable social and environmental impact alongside financial returns. And why AVPN? We're not just an organization, we're a vibrant network of passionate individuals like yourselves. AVPN has been at the forefront of driving social change by promoting investment in strategic development initiatives and themes, fostering collaborations and connections, and accelerating the development of the impact ecosystem in APAC. Over 11 years ago, AVPN marked on the mission to change things for impact in Asia, beginning with a strong focus on venture philanthropy. But over the past decade, we've become something bigger. We have evolved. We have broadened our scope and vision to represent the entire spectrum of capital dedicated to creating impact. We're all aware philanthropy and governments cannot address the global challenges we face today. We have to mobilize capital markets if we're to get anywhere close to achieving sustainable development. We also strongly believe in the power of collaboration. We recognize no single entity, sector, or business can address the complex challenges we face today. Impact investing is a testament to our belief that capital can be a force for good, transcending borders and industries and generating positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit. Today, we bring together institutional investors, development finance institutions, family offices, and a large cohort of impact funds, along with other stakeholders who are all committed to making a difference. Throughout the day, you will hear from thought leaders, engage in meaningful discussions, explore innovative approaches to impact investing. This conference is not just about listening to inspiring speakers or participating in engaging sessions. It's also about driving real action. We hope that by the end of the day, you will take full advantage of the networking opportunities, connect with fellow attendees to build partnerships that will further accelerate our collective impact. Before we proceed, I have the privilege to introduce a distinguished leader who has been instrumental in driving impact investments and promoting sustainable development. It is my honor to welcome Dato' Amirul Faisal Wan Zahir, the Managing Director of Khazanah National Berhad, to join us today. His visionary leadership and wealth of expertise has played a pivotal role in shaping Khazanah's commitment to responsible investing. We look forward to his insights and perspectives as a sovereign wealth fund on how to amplify impact and drive transformational change. Please join me in welcoming Dato' Amirul Faisal Wan Zahir on stage.
Thank you so much, Kamal, for that kind introduction. By the way, this morning, what a treat. That was incredible. I think we should it's almost like an end, right? We should end there, go home. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now, first of all, let me express my heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to speak this morning. And it's an honor and a treat to be part of this discourse in this excellent AVPN Global Conference 2023. And from what I gather, the Impact Investing Day. And it's even more of an honor as the Hasana Forum is being held in conjunction with the AVPN Global Conference. And my congratulations to both YH and AVPN for this meaningful collaboration and learning partnership. I understand that this is the first year AVPN is including the Impact Investing Day in their global conference. And Naina, I think on behalf of the investor community here, as well as those who want to make an impact, we'd really, really like to thank AVPN for making this happen. Thank you. In recent years, we've witnessed a remarkable shift in the way we approach impact and investing. Impact investing has emerged as a powerful force, bringing together the best of both worlds, thereby simultaneously reshaping traditional investment landscapes. It has redefined the role of capital and the ways we crowd in investment in the pursuit of creating positive change. The idea that investments can generate not only financial returns, but also measurable social impact is a powerful one, capturing the attention of investors, entrepreneurs, global leaders alike. And I can say today, impact investing is no longer niche. It has rapidly gained traction in boardrooms and investment portfolios around the world. And as Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, we find ourselves eager to continue contributing to this movement. I'll share a bit about Khazanah's own history in investments, or strategic investments, and lessons we've learned. Now, since its inception, Khazanah has historically been entrusted with custodianship of national assets. Now, these include airports, highways, telcos, energy, and utility companies. And we seek to safeguard and enhance infrastructure vital to the prosperity of the nation. And through these investments, we strive to create a positive impact on the economy and the lives of everyday Malaysians. However, a second key part of Khazanah's historical mandate has been to undertake strategic investments which are developmental in nature. And with a unique mandate and position to advance the nation's development, we have invested in a wide range of sectors spanning agri-foods, sustainable development, leisure and tourism, innovation and technology, as well as the development of Iskandar Malaysia in Johor. Now, this mandate of strategic investments still holds. It has manifested itself today through one of our key strategic imperatives, namely Dana Impact, or Impact Fund, which we implemented in 2022. Now, Dana Impact aims to increase Malaysia's economic competitiveness and building national resilience while delivering socio-economic benefits to the people, or rakyat in Bahasa. It represents a key pillar of our Advancing Malaysia strategy. Now, while we're getting started on Dana Impact, Khazanah's historical journey has given us valuable insight and lessons on how one might approach strategic investments, which tend to be high risk in nature. And I suspect the same would also be true for impact investments. Now, the first key lesson is the need to partner with stakeholders who have the right capabilities and passion. Among some of the key challenges Khazanah faced in the past in making strategic investments was when there was a mismatch between the company, what the company needed, and what the management could offer. And we've had a fair share of highs and lows in our efforts to spur the agri-food sector in 2007. However, a formula that has worked is investing in people that possess not just passion, but also have the right capabilities. And passion you get from individuals who really want to deliver a positive difference to the country or to their cause. And what I mean by capabilities, it doesn't mean like having, Ivy League or Oxbridge qualifications, but those with hands-on, on-the-ground experience. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. We had a dairy-related investment. It's run by a serial entrepreneur who wasn't just capable, but he was so full of passion in what he was doing. And when he started off, he named every single one of his cows. And actually, this is what people say, right? He could actually touch a cow and say, okay, this is a good one, right? So he was so passionate about that. And guess what? Of course, from an investment perspective, it turned out pretty well, delivering attractive returns, but also a positive impact in the form of increasing household income for rural communities, creating about 1,800 micro-entrepreneurs, of which 80% of them are women. And of course, delivering fresh milk to Malaysians in this tropical weather at affordable prices. And that's delivering nutrition. So the point is, we need to find that talent, people with the right passion and capability. Another crucial learning is the importance of first identifying the intended impact outcomes, and then tracking progress accordingly. In the past, we've tried a variety of ways to measure the positive externalities associated with our strategic investments, be it employment created or contribution to Malaysia's food self-sufficiency ratio, but the journey was far from straightforward. And this was due, among other things, to a lack of data standardization, limited understanding of the ecosystem, information requirements, and so on. Nonetheless, we kept at it, especially for our developmental assets, and we believe we've made some progress in our efforts to effectively measure the impact that we make. And it's an ongoing journey that we continue to iterate on this. And lastly, effective collaboration of all segments of society, government, civil organizations, local communities, private firms, and so on, are essential to delivering meaningful impact. Now, this issue of strategic investing or impact investing, the issues they try to tackle can be absurdly complicated, and it requires a whole nation approach. And if we continue to think in silos, as we tend to do, and certainly even Khazanah, we've fallen into that trap as well, we may only seek out solutions that solve only part of a problem or only symptoms to a problem rather than a problem itself. So where are we? For one, we've taken some steps forward in delivering upon Dana Impact's purpose. But as we move forward, we realize more and more that all of what we do remains a work in progress. In fact, I'm not sure if it's ever possible to call anything completed, simply because given our mandate for national economic development is always a journey. And that being said, we will continue to iterate and learn as we go, focusing more on progress as opposed to perfection. Now, knowing full well that it is an evolution, I can share some philosophies to deliver impact as an institutional investor that one can use. And I call them 4 C's, so it's easy to remember. Coalition building, creative solutions, concrete measurement, context matters. Now, coalition building, given the complexity of the issues, no single entity, however influential, can tackle these issues by itself. It requires engaging with a myriad of stakeholders, be it local communities, governments, NGOs, foundations, and more. And imagine trying to tackle something like climate change, but only with public policy or only with investments. It's just not possible. Right? And as such, we build coalitions with stakeholders to make meaningful progress. Now, for example, as part of Dana Impact, we launched what we call the Future Malaysia Program, or FMP, which aims to support high-growth startups in Malaysia while enhancing the innovation ecosystem. But Khazanah itself can't do everything in the ecosystem, so we worked to bring together a diverse range of domestic and international partners, entrepreneurs, startups, accelerators, venture capital firms, corporate ventures. And to that end, the FMP has forged strategic collaborations with leading partners such as Gobi Partners, 500 Plug and Play, as well as Petronas as well. That's to start with. And it's to enable a more far-reaching approach. And with Hasanah, our own foundation, we're working to expand together specifically on the following three key areas: enhancing funding life cycle for Malaysian social enterprises, but providing access to capital for YH-funded social enterprises to scale operations and impact. Deepening the network between Dana Impact portfolio companies and Yayasan Hasanah grantees to allow them better collaboration among them as they deliver their impact objectives. And of course, providing scholarships, expanding education accessibility to lower income groups, ensuring sustainable pipeline of learners. And the word of American comedian Dave Chappelle, modern problems require modern solutions. I'm going to tweak that slightly and call it complex problems require creative solutions, but I guarantee you I'm not proposing Dave Chappelle's solutions, yeah. Okay. So what we mean is that we can't approach complex problems with textbook solutions. Now, many multifaceted challenges we face today, a textbook solution will just not work, right, if it exists at all. And even if they do, as I mentioned before, it exists in silos. So, but the solutions need not be complex. It can be simple. But combined with creative partnerships can actually lead to transformative outcomes. And it's on that note that we aspire to explore innovative partnerships models for our Future Malaysia Skills initiative, right? Now, this is a public-private philanthropic partnership approach, or 4P approach, a collaboration between public sector, private sector, and philanthropic organizations, extending the more traditional PPP approach. And this effectively tries to fill any gaps in the continuum of capital by including philanthropy. Now, 4P approach is an ongoing journey, which we plan to roll out across Khazanah's Future Malaysia Skills initiatives, beginning with 42 Malaysia. I'll talk a bit more about that later, where we will be working with our foundation, YH, to provide needs-based scholarships to expand education accessibility to lower income groups. And we believe philanthropy continues to play an integral part of impact investing. And in the spirit of building coalitions, we welcome the opportunity to work with more private and philanthropy partners that share the similar vision as we scale our PPP approach. And I mentioned earlier, and it can be difficult to keep our eyes on the impact road if measurement is not sufficiently robust or prioritized. And concrete measurement is absolutely crucial. Like everyone else in this room, we believe that impact can and should be measured, and in doing so, we built on prior thinking of Khazanah to develop and update our impact measurement framework, which we call our SMARA initiative. And here we didn't reinvent the wheels. We looked at our history. We studied the impact players, what other impact players are doing, and essentially calibrated the framework to Malaysia and Khazanah context. We've begun rolling it out in our various investments. We did a Series B investments in InsurTech recently, and we actually applied that, looking at the impact it would have for the underserved, for 2.5 million gig workers, as well as 300,000 SMEs. And I hope that we can try to bring forward Samara and collaborate with other institutions that can apply it across Malaysia more widely. Now finally comes context. Solutions that country A may not work as well as country B for a variety of reasons. And here, humility is paramount. So whatever that we do, we need to be problem-driven and context-relevant. So under Dana Impact, knowing that a bunch of corporate people know nothing much about agriculture, we conducted a nationwide survey to gain insights into the challenges faced by our smallholders, or smallholder farmers in the agri-food sector. So we actually engaged about 2,500 smallholders across the country, East and West Malaysia. And the findings led us to a significant realization that many proposed solutions fail to address the real underlying pain points of smallholders in this country. And the same goes for when we had conversations with businesses across Malaysia in a variety of fields. Talent remains a challenge. And when I mean talent, it doesn't mean necessarily degree certificates. What it means is that talent's relevant for industry, which can be obtained either through higher institutions or even vocational institutions. So we quickly realized the need to generate a sustainable talent pipeline. And as I mentioned earlier, we launched Future Malaysia Skills as a talent generation platform in preparing Malaysia's talent for the future. So here we partnered, another partnership, with Sunway Education Group to establish 42 Malaysia, an innovative peer-to-peer computer science school that aims to accelerate development of 10,000 skilled tech talents in the next 10 years. And we want to roll it up nationwide. But to understand the context further, we delved deeper. We discovered that even if training is free for the student and the potential income is decent, training centers still could not attract the underprivileged youth. And that's because when they leave school, they can earn a decent income as a gig worker, like a delivery ride say for Grab. Now they can earn that immediately, whereas training would mean that they would be out of work without income for a period of time. And that's not easy for a lower income group. And this is where we hope to collaborate with philanthropic organizations to help them bridge this gap. But it's understanding the context which is key. Now at Khazanah, we've come far in our decades-long journey of creating impact and advancing Malaysia. And at every juncture, success has stemmed from concerted efforts of coalition building, a concrete view of impact, and we wish to make, as well as creative solutions, and have a deep appreciation of the local context. And these same ingredients will be key moving forward as we continue to lead the way in impact investing. And it's on that note, once again, we invite and welcome collaboration with new partners who share our vision of creating meaningful impact for Malaysia. In fact, the very idea of coalition building speaks to AVPN's goal of providing a platform to connect, lead, and learn through nothing short of multi-sector collaboration. And it is in this spirit that I'm excited about the potential outcomes of this AVPN Global Conference and the Hassanah Forum, and I would encourage everyone to make full use of this excellent conference to figure out who your allies in mission are, and thus build something concrete that can make serious change. Thank you very much, and I wish everyone a meaningful and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dato' Faisal, for the keynote address. How illuminating. Dato', if you could kindly stay with us on the stage and take a seat for the next panel session. And now to join Dato' on stage, we invite Nena Suberwal Batra, Chief Executive Officer of AVPN, to introduce our next speaker and kick off a panel session on impact through institutional investment. Nena, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faisal, for that really inspiring and very, very informational keynote. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, we now move on to the first plenary of the day, Impact through Institutional Investment. Our other esteemed speaker on the panel, please join me in welcoming my good friend, Cliff Pryor, who's also the CEO of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investing. Let's have a round of applause for Cliff.
Thank you, Naina. Thank you.
So what we are going to discuss in this panel today actually is, it's a really interesting panel from my perspective, because Cliff has, we're really fortunate to have him here. He has a long history of working with impact through his career, and he is going to share his insights from a global perspective, while we have Dr. Faisal here, who can actually help us relate it to a Malaysian perspective. And I'm really excited about that, because it fits in so nicely with our overarching theme of global challenges and how do we come up with relevant Asian solutions. So I'm going to start with you, Cliff. From your perspective, both as having been deeply involved in the impact space for most of your career, and then most recently with the Global Steering Group, can you tell us why, firstly, what is the sort of trajectory you've seen in terms of the interest around impact investing? And what are the key themes that you have identified that impact investing is well poised to address?
Thanks very much, Naina, and thanks for the opportunity to be here, and what a wonderful group, and what a wonderful, truly wonderful first start this morning. That was absolutely astonishing. So, impact has been growing in volume, growing across more countries. But when we think about the themes, many of them have been around for a long time. Poverty alleviation, education, healthcare, agriculture, the use of tech for good. Some newer areas are coming along, and I would say they're mainly around nature. So biodiversity, oceans, a recognition that soil is important and absolutely crucial for our future food. And we're starting to see systemic areas as well. And I suppose the best example of that, and the most important example of that, is gender, which encompasses all of the above and more. But the single most overwhelming issue is climate. The transformation to clean energy, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, greenhouse gases to clean energy. And this is something which is essential and urgent and incredibly powerful. Many of you will have heard about the droughts, the fires, the floods, the 1,000-year experiences that have happened over the last year. Just to take two examples of that. Pakistan, a third of their landmass underwater. Nowhere else to go. In India, 200 million people with over 50 Celsius temperature for 2 weeks. The life expectancy at 55 Celsius is almost zero. We're that close to the edge. So, urgency. And I would like to say to people, I know many people will talk about 2050 for net zero. I think that's way too late. Way too late. We need to be thinking about 2030 and with great urgency. And this isn't just because of the climate, it's because of the consequences of the climate on people, particularly on vulnerable populations who have nowhere else to go and don't have the money to get to somewhere else. Absolutely disastrous. The climate change is the global challenge for vulnerable peoples. So what are we going to do about it? And what is the impact movement going to do about it? Well, to my mind, the financial system is the most powerful agent in the world. So let's change the financial system. Let's change the financial system so that it makes it easier to do the good stuff and harder and more painful to do the bad stuff. We are seeing global standards. We're seeing reporting systems, transparency, taxonomies. We're making impact the norm. We're building the crucial impact tools, things like having wholesale funds, particularly in emerging countries, so that it can be in local currency. We can look at things like outcome funds. We can look at the sovereign funds, and wonderful to have that in Malaysia. More countries with impact practice, the National Advisory Board system that we work with for impact, and I'm really delighted actually to be able to say that this is the day where Malaysia launches its task force, working towards a National Advisory Board for impact investing, designing its own vision, its program, its call to action. Really wonderful to see that alongside colleagues across the region through collaborations like AVPN and Hazana and Kazana and so on. Each country has its own opportunities, its own problems. We're focusing on the opportunities to address this better future.
Thank you, Cliff. And yes, you said we don't have time. We're running out of time. And climate action, which we know well in this part of the world, Dada Faisal, the effects of climate change, the effects of economic inclusion or poverty alleviation, looking at nature-based solutions. How are these themes resonating with you here in Malaysia, and are they influencing investments that you make at Khazanah?
Yes, I think the themes that Cliff mentioned, I think what you said, I mean, we do see the themes, and of course, Dana Impact has a role to play in that and achieving that. But actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because when we first started out Dana Impact, we wanted to do good, right? So we wanted to do good, and therefore, but it was we needed to focus on the areas that would actually catalyze or have a good impact on the country as a sovereign wealth fund. And in two forms. One is to improve the global competitiveness, the country's competitiveness, as well as the resilience. So it's like an offense and defense strategy. Now, but we looked at the megatrends, and climate came out strongly, obviously. But as a nation, we needed to look at what other things that we should also look at as well. And looking at the megatrends, digital and technology is one, health and education. When we looked at security of energy as well as food security, those are also something, and I think COVID really showed us that, right? And of course climate, but also things like income inequality, decent work, and social mobility was also something that we needed to look at. As well as I said, the offense, which is globally competitive. So those are like the 6 themes that Dana Impact is poised to do. And it's a big task. And this is where, because it's such a big task, and knowing that it does resonate, I mean, you talk about climate, that's huge. We're not just looking at Dana Impact per se, for climate at least. We're looking beyond that. We have portfolio companies that have a role to play. We also have some of our existing investments already in sustainability, for example, that we will try to create a better platform for more impact in that manner. So we have Dana Impact, actually, not just Dana Impact, but all our companies looking at the challenges such as climate. But for Dana Impact itself, there are other things that we would be looking at.
That's interesting. So Dana Impact is one way, but you're also looking at all your portfolio companies to really look at how they are much more sustainable, how they are actually, what is the footprint that they are putting on in their own operations. In your keynote speech, you spoke a lot about partnership and collaboration and the 4 Cs. I think we at AVPN also believe that our mission is to mobilize capital for impact, and such a mission cannot be actually achieved at all without partnerships and collaboration. And the 3 of us sitting here is a good example of partnership and collaboration, because the conference has come about as a strong collaboration between YH and AVPN. GSG and AVPN have had a long-standing collaboration right from the very beginning, and I think without collaborations we can't move forward. In that note, when I spoke yesterday, I talked about a collaboration that AVPN has with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to build a platform for solutions, because when we are talking about impact investing, we also need to have a pipeline of investable solutions. And in the spirit of collaboration, I'm also very delighted to announce that we have 3 other venture philanthropy networks, or 3 other impact networks that are looking at mobilizing capital for impact across geographies as diverse as Asia, Europe, Africa, and Latin America. And these 4 have come together in a group called GAIN, or the Global Alliance of Impact Networks. And they are going to be working together with AVPN on this platform of solutions that can be tapped into by financial advisors, by investment advisors and financial institutions to really build up a pipeline of investable opportunities. So talking about investable opportunities, Dr. Faisal, I want to ask you about Dana Impact and just understand a little bit more, what are the kinds of organizations that Dana Impact actually invests in, and how do we actually look at scaling those organizations?
Thank you. So just for everyone's information here, Dana Impact, we've allocated 6 billion ringgit over 5 years. And it sounds, as Malaysians, it sounds quite large. But when you actually translate it to US dollars and looking on a per annum basis, and you compare it to what's being invested outside of Malaysia, it's not that large, actually. Right. And this is where, because of that, we do have to leverage on partners and have to have that collaboration. I'll give you 2 examples. One example is what we're doing in the digital and technology space and how we're doing it and who we're doing it with. And then also with our own foundation, which is Hasana, what we're doing and what we hope to do with them. So like in digital technology, we're looking at ecosystems. We're looking at building an ecosystems, and there are already many players in there. But as we all understand, and some of the people in the audience here are venture capitalists and from the investment community, and we know that as a country, we may have been falling short of our neighbors, for example, in trying to have that whole ecosystem of startups. We have investors coming in at Series C onwards, with slightly less risky compared to the venture, but coming up with more and more of them, it's something that we're looking at and how to address. So here we're looking at partnering venture capitalists. Now we are pretty large, and for us to actually nurture that space, it becomes difficult. So we actually put money in some VCs. And how we do it is also important. So we actually chose 500 and Gobi. They're international investors, but it's also to make sure that people can see there's actually opportunities that might attract other global venture firms. And it also increases the knowledge base of local startups on how to get to that level. And then at the same time, we look at corporate ventures. We have a lot of portfolio companies. These are listed companies, but for them to make investments in venture, it's pretty risky. So this is where we try to group that and try to set up a platform where people can leverage on. So we brought in Plug and Play, for example. That's where all the corporates can actually participate. We ourselves are a corporate partner of Petronas because they started their corporate venture. And of course, understanding all of that, there's an ecosystem I mentioned to you about getting the talent pool in that space. So again, we're partnering people. So what we're doing is we're looking at gaps and identifying participants that can give them that boost. And slowly the whole ecosystem will come into place. The other thing about philanthropy. Now I think I mentioned digital technology because this is a space where as a financial investor, people are looking for double-digit returns in a 3 to 5 year time frame, and has to have scalability and hopefully a next unicorn, right? So but when I actually go to the other space, this is where I'm working with Hasana, it's a different space altogether. They help a lot of social entrepreneurs. So how do we continue enhancing that life cycle for the social entrepreneurs beyond just grants? How do we actually try to spur that as well, because they're creating impact. And then at the same time, there's a lot of investments that we have in place, which is actually quite useful for the social entrepreneur and vice versa. So a lot of our portfolio companies it's worth deepening that network with a lot of the relationships that Hasana has, getting that ecosystem so people know what each other are doing. And of course, talent, education, I think you mentioned that as well. That's actually quite key as well. So yeah, that's how we partner.
I think you've actually said some really relevant things here. You know, one is really looking at what is the pipeline and how it is different for different pools of investors, and how do you, as a sovereign wealth fund of Malaysia, actually work with these different groups. You talked about VCs and working with VCs to target a particular size of investment. You talked about working with foundations like Yayasan Hasana to really look at social enterprises that are just in the beginning of their journey. And you talked about how you can look at corporates and your portfolio companies in terms of what they bring to the table, both in terms of corporate impact venturing and really looking at mentoring some of the social enterprises that are really at the start of their journey. And I think for the audience, this is something that's really important, because sometimes what happens is when we're a social enterprise or we are a social entrepreneur and we're looking at scaling, or we are a startup impact fund, we go often to pools of capital that are not really ready to look at the tenure, the amount of time it's going to take to actually generate a positive capital return, much less a double-digit one, and also to look at the finance plus kind of investment and support that you will need. So keeping those things in mind, I think, Cliff, we hear so much about blended finance and it being the silver bullet that will actually solve some of these problems. So let me ask you a little bit of a difficult question. Where does blended finance come in? How does it address some of these gaps? Does it really help enterprises from falling off into what we call the valley of death, or the pioneer gap, or depending on who you're talking to? So what's your experience of blended finance?
I completely agree with you that last year was, blended finance was all the rage. Everybody was talking about it. I'm not sure that anybody was doing it last year. Can I cheat a little bit and just say, who thinks blended finance is valuable and necessary, maybe even, in their work? Who would see it as, okay, that's quite a lot of people. Keep your hand up if you've actually found any blended finance. Okay, I think that just tells us where we are. But there is somebody over there. That's good. Look, blended finance is crucial to get many kinds of initiatives started. Whether that's a first mover in a new area of work, where after a bit of blended finance, actually it can be viable on its own, or whether you're actually tackling a problem which is going to be a long-term problem, and you will always need some level of concessionary finance or what it might be. But blended finance isn't just about giving a cash amount. It can be about technical assistance. It can be about investment readiness. It can be first loss guarantee. It can be insurance. There are so many different tools, all valuable and valuable in different circumstances. We had a lot of work last year with the G20 on blended finance, and there are now a number of very skilled, very helpful organizations. Convergence is really useful. The C3, Catalytic Capital Consortium, which is putting out money using blended finance and then doing the research to understand where that blended finance is most useful. And the Global Blended Finance Alliance, based in Indonesia. So we're seeing it coming more and more and more. The big question is, where is that blended finance coming from? And some governments are doing this. The IRA in the US, when you look at that huge program, just how much of it is actually blended finance. DFIs have started working on it. There's corporate support from some areas, individual investors, foundations, and it's really wonderful to have the sovereign agencies in Malaysia. That creates the possibilities. And as we get more understanding, we need less blended finance because we're using it more effectively. So I think next year has to be a whole load of hands that are still up when I'm saying, have you found any?
Absolutely, and amen to that. And I believe that I'm going to do a shout out to Convergence, which is one of our partners who's actually trying to promote blended finance in the region. But Dr. Faisal, coming to you, you know, when I talk to a lot of investors and I talk to them about impact investing, I think one of the things that we always get stuck on is metrics. How do you actually measure impact, and how do I really decide whether or not I'm going to put my money in education, in technology, in health? I would really love to understand a little bit about how effective have you found impact metrics, and what is the role that they play when you are deciding on your investments?
Well, first of all, I think it's extremely important that we have a good measurement tool. And for Dana Impact, for example, any opportunities that come by, that is something that we look at. We do apply our metric. The metric that we have, I mentioned in my speech, is Samara. We call Samara. And I think one of the important things about this measurement is not only having the internal comfort that we can actually measure the concrete impact it has, but also have something which other people can understand as well. And why I say that is because we want to have some form of understanding, at least a commonality of the measure for impact. With that, I think we can scale a lot further. And I'll give you an example. So in coming up with our own metric, Samara, we went on this journey quite a while back. I'm not quite sure, it was perhaps 10 years ago, and looking at the true value of a company. Looking at the true value, the benefits that it has, which now is translated into ESG, but also the external benefits. But it was very, very difficult because of data. So the current approach, or the updated approach right now, while we still start with the value of theory of change, we actually looked at frameworks that other people are using. So we're using our partners. So we are a sovereign wealth. We invest in other funds as well, and we learn how other people are doing it. And there is a framework, IMP 5, right? So Impact Management Project 5. So that's a framework that's being used by many. So we've adopted that and applied it. And of course, we have to contextualize that in order to make it relevant for Khazanah. Now, one of the things where we do see how impact investors are doing differently is while they have a framework, some would choose to put in a dollar value to that impact. From our perspective, I think understanding the thresholds is slightly different, because what we found, at least in the first round, is perfection was actually blocking people from doing good. And this is where we want to progress directionally first, and we will continue to iterate what we have and learn from other people. And I think that's how we approach it, yeah.
No, and I think universality, adopting something that, and sharing it with others, what you have adopted, so that your partners can learn from you. I think looking at tweaking it to your own context, these are things that are really important. At AVPN, we have also worked with the IMP project and those principles, and I feel like it is really crucial, and I think everyone in this room will agree, one of the things that we need to work on is impact metrics and getting standardized impact metrics so that the impact investing industry can actually move much faster than it has done today. We have come to the end of time, and so I'm going to wrap up this panel. Thank you so much. Could I have a show of hands for my esteemed panelists? Thank you. Thank you very much. But we are not done yet, so I'm going to let these gentlemen off the stage. But I am going to talk to you about this day, which is really special, as Komal said. It is our first Impact Investing Day. And we are indeed fortunate, actually, to have a special video address by someone you could call pretty much the godfather of impact investing, Sir Ronald Cohen, who is the founder of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investing. And in his address, unfortunately, Sir Ronnie couldn't be here in person, but he has sent us this video, which is going to play, where he's going to share his perspective on impact investing, which I hope will be a good tone for the rest of the day.
It's a great pleasure to be joining you remotely for this important AVPN conference. It comes at a very important time when impact investment is being driven to the center stage globally. I, for one, see this through the activities of the GSG, the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, and I see it in 36 countries, which include, with, I'm very glad to say, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand on the path to creating national advisory boards in their countries. What is driving this advance to the center stage? There are three major forces that I see. The first is a force that comes from a change in values which started 10 or 15 years ago among young people, led them not to buy the products of companies that are doing, not to work for those companies, and that became noticed by investors, and it's driven the growth of ESG investing to $40 trillion today. And impact investment, which has the intention to create impact as well as profit, like ESG, but which in addition measures rigorously the impact created, was non-existent then. And today it's a $2.4 trillion market. In the last 3 or 4 years alone, we have seen 1.4 trillion of sustainability-linked bonds and loans come from nothing to fund companies that can reduce their cost of capital by delivering on preset targets, both environmental and social. The second major force is the force of technology. The huge advances we're making now in artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, and the genome and powerful computing and coming together are driving the creation of new business models that converge with the impact thing. There are thousands and thousands of companies, entrepreneurial startups and young ventures that are bringing impact into their business models and seeking to bring solutions to the great challenges that we face in health, in education, in fintech, in transport, in energy. Every sector is going to be disrupted by the arrival of these new technologies and impact thinking, in the same way that the arrival of the microchip ended up disrupting every single sector. And the third force, which is a crucially important one, is our ability to measure impacts, the force of transparency on the impacts created by companies. And there we're making huge advances. The SEC this month, or in the next 2 or 3 months, will mandate the publication by every company of all their environmental impacts. The ISSB, which comes under the organization that's responsible for all financial accounting across the globe, IFRS, is standardizing the measurement of both social and environmental impact. The EU has already driven transparency on investment vehicles. And the convergence of these three forces is actually changing our economic systems to deliver solutions rather than to create and aggravate problems. So your conference comes at a very important time. The role of philanthropy in supporting the advance of impact investment is crucially important, not just through blended finance, but also through the funding of efforts such as ours to spread impact policies throughout the world and accelerate our transition to the impact economies we need if we are to meet our great challenges. So I wish you well in your conference and look forward, together with you, to hastening the arrival of a world that generates positive impact. Thank you.
And that was Ronald Cohen, President of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment. Our next speaker speaks and writes regularly on poverty alleviation, early childhood development, and basic education. A trustee of the Tanoto Foundation, she actively supports the mobilization of multi-stakeholder alliances and initiatives to champion these endeavors, both in Indonesia and across the region. In 2019, she was recognized by Forbes as one of Asia's heroes of philanthropy for her work in these fields. Ladies and gentlemen, delivering a keynote on philanthropic organizations' role in catalyzing impact investing, please welcome Belinda Tanoto.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, my heartiest congratulations to Yayasan Hasanah and AVPN for bringing together such an impressive and diverse group of experts and practitioners to join this year's conference. This demonstrates the continuing momentum to harness the power of philanthropy and impact investing to help transform the world for the better. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. In the last 15 years of doing philanthropic work, I realized that philanthropy and impact investing are complementary and mutually reinforcing. If you look at developing countries like Indonesia, where our foundation was first founded, it is important to mobilize different types of funding to address social problems. This can come from a range of sources, from governments, philanthropic organizations, development agencies, and the private sector. In Indonesia, the investment market is 620 times philanthropic capital. The government budget is 190 times. Impact investing, 18 times. And philanthropic capital, while it continues to grow at a rapid pace, stands at roughly $1 billion. Given the limited size of philanthropic capital, how do we catalyze and attract other types of funding to address the world's most pressing social needs? I'd like to share 3 stories with you today. My first story is about Stuart Cook, and it's about how philanthropy provides catalytic risk capital. Stuart is an extraordinary cardiologist and clinical scientist who we are proud to name as Tanoto Foundation Professor in Cardiovascular Medicine at the Duke NUS Medical School in Singapore. Through our funding, Professor Cook studied in depth the development of precise antibody therapies and discovered that faulty protein interleukin-11 prevented organs in the body from repairing. Professor Cook then co-founded a biotech company called Enliofen to develop an antibody drug against the interleukin-11 gene to treat a range of heart, lung, liver diseases. This company attracted further investments from a pharmaceutical company specializing in fibrosis-related drugs. The professorship at Duke NUS Singapore and the initial grant by our foundation not only contributed to building a great institution, but acted as risk capital and catalyst to unlock additional investments to help address healthcare needs. The world needs more of this type of capital. Patient, flexible, long-term, early-stage capital, which is best provided by foundations and philanthropy organizations. My second story is about systems change through developing leaders. A few months back, I had the privilege of going on a learning journey to India with several of Southeast Asia's leading philanthropists. There, we learned about the Gandhi Fellowship. The Gandhi Fellowship, supported by the Piramal Foundation, places some of India's brightest college graduates in the rural areas to build empathy, think about systems change, and tap into the advocacy platforms that the Piramal Foundation has built. I remember meeting Mariam in Jaipur. Dressed in blue tunic and wearing a hijab, she spoke slowly in English. She was the first in her family to graduate from university and was working with very young children and using art as a post-conflict rehabilitative tool. Her passion, authenticity, and courage really touched my heart. Similarly, here in Malaysia, there's Acumen Fellowship, supported by the YTL Foundation. The fellowship brings together a cohort of extraordinary individuals working on problems of poverty and equips them with the knowledge, skills, and network to strengthen their leadership to scale and create meaningful change. Many of the graduates of these programs become change makers and start their own nonprofits, businesses, organizations. Many of them eventually also get funding from impact investors to scale up their enterprises. By putting leadership at the core of our work, foundations are priming the pump to scale entire industry sectors. And of course, just to reiterate the excellence of these two models, one of them was the keynote speaker yesterday, Mr. Peramal, and the other would be the keynote speakers tomorrow, Ms. Kathleen Chu and Ms. Jacqueline Novogratz. My third and final story is about ecosystem building. It takes a village to raise a child. In Indonesia and China, we do a lot of work in early childhood and education development and development. What we do is create platforms for different stakeholders to convene, share best practices, and collaborate. When we first started work in stunting in Indonesia, 1 in 3 children were stunted. We've made incredible progress bringing down the stunting rate from 33% to 20%, but more work needs to be done. I know some of you may think, oh, Indonesians are born short, but no. Short height or stunting is actually correlated with the brain's underdevelopment and as a result of a severe malnutrition. Stunted children are susceptible to long-term development delays and weakened immune systems. In Indonesia, we work very closely with both the national government to advocate for policy reforms and systems change, as well as local governments to strengthen their capacity to deliver services. We also actively shape the policies and programs to tackle stunting by creating working groups and forums, bringing together different stakeholders, multilateral organizations, World Bank, UNICEF, nonprofits, private sector, universities, think tanks, to work together and build the whole field around early childhood education and development. On the slide, you can see one of our consultation sessions with the government through our multi-donor trust fund funded by us and the Gates Foundation. Our technical assistance fund unlocked $400 million for early years loan from the World Bank, which then supports the government, a larger government budget to tackle stunting. Now you may wonder why I'm sharing this story. Stunting is a complex issue and requires multi-sectoral collaboration. While we've had some success in attracting new corporate funding as well as some international donors to the early childhood space in Indonesia, we need more funding. I'd like to invite all of you to Indonesia to join in on the action. Imagine building and funding one of the largest affordable preschools network in the world, or scaling a healthy snack company, or a cross-subsidized teachers training model. Southeast Asia is a large market. Indonesia alone is 280 million people. I believe that we can do well by doing good. I'd like to end by sharing an old proverb. If we want to go fast, we go alone. If we want to go far, we go together. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda, for your powerful words. As you all know, Asia is home to some of the fastest growing economies in the world, economies that require immense energy resources to power.
And yes, Brendan, but we also know if climate change is to be addressed, then the transition to cleaner energy resources need to accompany this growth.
This next discussion will explore this dichotomy, the challenges and risks associated with investing in the energy transition, the strategies that will be required to ensure that clean energy is accessible and affordable, and the critical work needed to ensure that this transition is a just one.
And if I may add, the workers who create this infrastructure and transition must be skilled. to capitalize on these economic opportunities?
Absolutely. Now, please join me in welcoming Oriel Morrison, Chief Strategy Officer of the APAC Network, and Amir Hamza Azizan, Chief Executive Officer of the Employees Provident Fund, or EPF, of Malaysia, to discuss investing in Asia's energy transition.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here today and lovely to see so many of you out there today. Let me ask you, how many people in the audience today is involved in the energy transition in any which way, whether it's on the entrepreneurial side, the innovation side, the funding side? Not quite as many as I expected. Would you have expected more?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but it's nice to be here anyway, and we hope that you're going to learn something from what we're going to talk about today. I've been so excited to have you with us, Amir. I've been very much looking forward to this conversation.
That's a lot of pressure for today, right?
No
see how we
pressure.
do.
No pressure whatsoever. You're okay. We'll be kind. Now, you've got an incredibly interesting background, especially when it comes to this topic that we're talking about today. You were obviously the former lead for Tenaga Nasional. So let me start off with a big question for you. Is Asia ready for the energy transition that's required?
I thought you were going to be kinder to me and not put hard questions up first. The reality of the game is the energy transition story requires a solution that is not only within the country, but fundamentally requires much greater cooperation across the borders. And so if you look at Malaysia fundamentally as an example today, if you look at Malaysia, I would guess today probably about 65% of our energy mix is coming from coal, yeah? And fundamentally, because the system is designed in order to make sure that consumers pay a fair amount for what they consume, the tariff mechanisms collect over a duration of time and spread the cost out over a period. If you were to interrupt that mechanism, the key question then becomes, who pays for the gap? Yeah? And hence, the biggest challenge for Asia in the transitioning is how do you bridge the accelerated pace of replacing, like for Malaysia, coal in the energy mix.
And I think that's really important because obviously Malaysia is not the only nation in the Asian region which is heavily dependent on fossil fuels, primarily coal. What does progress look like then? I mean, you've just talked about transition fuels. You and I had a discussion prior to the conference, and we talked about the financing of those transition fuels. And, with the focus on the energy transition, do we still want to see natural gas in the mix? If we do we have to use it? And what happens if the financing for something like that disappears?
I think the reality is, as Dr. Faisal put it earlier, you must look at things in context. Yeah, Malaysia is still a developing country, and our obligation is still to help the nation address growth so that we can prosper the society overall. So in this transition story, the key question is how do you keep that pacing in the right order? So if I look at the EPF, and just to give you a sense of what the EPF is like, we are Malaysia's largest pension fund. We have an asset under management of about $250 billion at this point of time. So deployment and capital allocation is probably one of the big tools and levers that we use to facilitate transition. Now I can do things in a very, very easy form, right? Which is, if you are not transitioning, tomorrow I stop. If I'm investing in you, I withdraw. But the net consequences of decisions like that are probably traumatic to the system. And given that we started and we have a fundamental role in facilitating national growth, yeah, we cannot have disruptive events like that into the system. So last year, we introduced our sustainable investment policy. And by putting targets along the way that EPF commits, that by 2030 we will be an ESG compliant portfolio, and by 2050 climate neutral, we set out targets that we require our investing company to meet. And in that process, the engagement process becomes the big shift mechanism that we use. because we believe that we must handhold, push, drive, so that the transition becomes much more sustainable in that manner. So to me, the key challenge then becomes how do you facilitate transition, how do you assist, and so on. Direct involvement of EPF comes in terms of providing capital. Yeah, and last year when Malaysia launched its Sustainable Sukuk, EPF was the biggest subscriber to that. And out of the 4.8 billion ringgit that was put out, we took up 3.1 billion as a firm commitment to accelerate, to provide better support in that area. But clearly, if we talked about transitioning from coal, using gas as a transition fuel, and then moving on to something else, the reality that exists in Malaysia today is it is highly unlikely that we'll have enough capacity to generate renewable and green energy to manage this process. So how do you fix and how do you bridge the gap? And that's where I said this problem cannot be fixed fundamentally within each single cell. What you have to do is build better interconnects in the world. So from an Asian point of view, the Asian grid is part of the solution. What can we do to build better exchanges of energy between those that have to those that don't have? Yeah? Today in Malaysia, probably about nearly 600 megawatts connectivity that exists. That's a fraction of what the power needs in the country is. But there are countries within the Asian region that are a little bit more wider in ability to generate RE. We've got to facilitate that. I just give you a slice of what can be, what different solutions could be like, and what commitments of institutional investors can open up to facilitate change.
So, Amir, you're sort of talking about here, you know, one of the big challenges with the energy transition, specifically here in Malaysia, is, of course, the energy needs that are outside the urban areas, you know, those that are in different socio-economic areas as well. When you look at that, those kind of economic growth pressures and the growth pressures coming out of those areas, when you're talking about collaboration, that's not only collaboration government business level, that's also international collaboration at an international level. However, if we take Malaysia for a moment, it's going to take legislative reforms on a significant scale in order to solve these challenges, is it not? And how far down the road are we to actually solving those challenges here in Malaysia?
I think if you look at the commitment of the government in terms of transitioning Malaysia along the way, the commitment it made under COP and so on, I think Malaysia's put a game plan of how to get there, and we're moving along to meet the commitments. Is it easy? Probably not. Yeah, because fundamentally it means that we will have to transition to cleaner fuels. Yeah, it does mean that we have to incentivize investment in a better form to get people to move on. And as discussed earlier, probably quite a lot of reskilling has to occur to facilitate that transition in that mode. So how do you actually facilitate that? The second element is, of course, my pet peeve at this point of time is actually the reality is the developed world must do more to facilitate transitions in the developing world. Call it penance for the sins of the past. Yeah? It's time that is paid in order to facilitate it. Because when you look at the climate change issue does not distinguish where you are. Yeah? It is a global problem. Emissions, when generated, doesn't stop at the border. And because the people who have contributed the most in the past should be taking responsibility for some of that, let's see capital deployed. There were global commitments that we made to say that developed nations will be deploying about $100 billion of funding availability to facilitate this transition. What we want to see is where is that deployment and how is it put in. Yeah? Does it mean it's one-sided? No. It will require joint commitments from the recipient also to do their part to facilitate true change. Yeah? And I think that concept that was talked about just now about blended finance may be part and parcel of the core solution to make sure it works.
But we're not ready for that yet, if you heard the previous panel. We're not quite there yet.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Let's take the first step.
And I believe, talking about the first step, there was somebody on that side of the room who had actually experienced blended finance. Is that right? Gentleman in the front row? Somewhere in the back over there. Yeah, indeed. So let me ask you then, you talked about earlier on in our conversation about the role of EPF within this transition. Financing. How do you measure the impact that you're going to make? How do you determine what financing you're going to give and to whom?
I think I start back again with our sustainable investment policies. The whole idea was to get our portfolio to be ESG compliant by 2030 and fully climate neutral by 2050. Those are easy words to put on paper, but it's actually damn hard to do on the ground, right? It requires us then to be actively engaged with our investing company so that we can understand what are their footprint impacts and asking them to be fairly transparent in how they're going to get and move that way, and then forcing us to consider what are things that we're prepared to do to facilitate change. Yeah, that is, I think, the first step. Yeah, the second step is then asking the question as we refine and we push and we develop it. We cannot put thresholds that probably are extremely difficult at the first stage. So then it's an evolutionary pace. So that whereby we view this transition of our investing company to be a step transition. 2023, 2024, put a commitment on the ground. Tell me how you're going to get there. Yeah? Make it embedded into your business plans. Put it out so it becomes measurable. If you can see that, then you're on the right track. And we say that you're beginning the journey of compliance. 2025, put those numbers and put target commitments that we can see that movement along the way. So in all these things, what we're pushing is supporting the wider change, which is let's make transparency a big thing. Let's put the issue about tax logi in terms of making sure that it comes in and support the mechanisms come to life in a way. So big institutional investors like EPF can do a lot by engaging, step up, hold, making it transparent and making the conversation comes to life. But ultimately, when we do see organizations don't want to shift, what do we do? Yeah? As I said earlier, I can't say I get out today. But I can say I want to help you and guide you and shape you to get there. And if you do along the way, I will continue to reinvest and do more things with you. But the moment you decide not to play in the game, at that point, I think it's fair to say, I can come out.
How do you regulate that? I mean, we talked a lot in the past about, over the last few years, about greenwashing. And very sadly, in my view, we're now talking more and more about impact washing. How do you avoid that? You know, we're talking about potentially large companies.
I think at the end of the day, it does recognizes that the system around it must have some sense of belief built into it. So if you look at today, I presume that if you roll the clock back maybe 200, 300 years ago and you ask what's the quality of accounting standards that exist 200 to 300 years, there will be quite a lot of gaps that exist. But the institutions that regulate it, the institution that provide transparency, the institution that roll this out, starts to pick it up. And then the regulation ties it back to fundamental requirements. So for example, Tan Sri Wahid here chairs Bursa. Bursa probably will tell you that if order for you to be able to be listed in Bursa, these are requirements, compliance with required standards, a 5-year track record of profitability, audited accounts along this way. So you start to build a system with mechanisms that actually tie fundamental joint interests that makes it hard for a person not to comply. So I think in the issue that we have in measurement today, the measurement levels needs to settle down, needs to be built up. But then making it a requirement forces people to comply. And I think that's the journey that we have to come on.
What sort of response are you within the EPF having from companies that you are talking to about these big issues, which is not a today issue, it was yesterday and the day before that. Are you getting a response where companies are saying, yes, please help us? How do we do this? Or is there a reluctance based on the fear of exactly what it's going to cost?
I think, to be fair, when EPF started to roll out this, we expected to have a huge pushback. Because the worry was the investing company says, who are you to tell me how to suck eggs? I already know what I'm doing. Trust me, I am fine. Don't bother. Just give me my money. That's all I want. But the reality is, I think the acceptance that we have a fundamental problem from a climate change perspective has actually quite spread quite well within corporate Malaysia. And actually, the desire to be party of the journey to solve the problem is there. What they actually want is to be sure that when they come and embrace this, I don't have 10 different versions of this that I have to comply. So if PF puts out a philosophy, another institution comes out with a philosophy, and we are wholly divergent. So instead of focusing on my business, that entity then decides to spend a lot of time getting measurement differentiation and serving the machine as opposed to what they're set up to do. So I think that's why getting clear taxonomy is fundamental in solving that issue. So when EPF started to do the engagement, I think we said, look, we'll be practical about it. And in that practicality, we will tell you what the medium-term and the long-term goal are, help us get there, and then we show what does it mean to us. And when we have that capacity to be practical, and when we have that capacity to be clear in how we engage, I think that trust level gets built up. And then when we started going down that journey to say, let me share with you what we've seen in other companies, and they see value in that basis, then that process becomes much more acceptable. The key problem then is it creates another problem for me, which is in order to feed this engine, I've got to step up the ability of my team, the solutioning and the sharing of things in a better form. And I think that's, it's a compliment to Malaysia that it wants to happen that way, but it is a pressure for us now to step up, to be able to push it along that way, to feed it better.
So let's take that sort of scenario and push it overseas and talk about cross-border financing. When we're talking about that subject, what needs to happen to ensure that the capital is going in the right direction, whether that's bringing capital into Malaysia or sending it out? Is it new regulatory frameworks that need to be put into place to attract more capital internationally? What needs to happen on that front?
I think the reality is taxonomy needs to get solved. That's given, and the agencies that actually facilitate that you can build trust behind what is measured is important, so that you don't have differentiations in terms of how you to facilitate or to stop greenwashing and so on. The key for financing along the way is today, as my appeal, as I said, my pet peeve now is do your part to facilitate this transition. The key problem is that one of the reasons why finances doesn't get to the end point faster is the understanding of risks, and the co-sharing of risk keeps financing costs extremely high when you come into a developing country basis. So the key question is that if you want to facilitate that change, how do you reduce the risk? And in reducing the risk, the impact of the financing cost will be much more material, so then finance flows in a better form. And I think that dialogue needs to be looked at in facilitating that transition. From an EPF point of view, because at the end of the day, I have to recognize the fact that I am an institutional investor, I look after people's money, and I must make sure that they get the returns that they deserve. The focus that we actually have is to keep money safe while earning a fair return along the way. The strength that I actually have is my investing horizons are actually very, very long. Because I'm a pension fund. I collect money. If you start in the fund at the age of 21, you start taking it out by the time you're 60. That's a long breath of time. And as the fund continues to grow, I can spread and manage the risk in a better form. So there's a lot of great things that institutional investors can do to facilitate, because capital can be patient. But what we need is bridging areas that are hard to do. Because what I cannot do as an institutional investor is invest in suboptimal returns, yeah, then I'm not doing justice to the people I'm supposed to invest for. So let's focus about how to reduce risk so that we can get it within reach, that I can come in a lot easier and deploy it in a better form.
What do those conversations look like? I mean, if I was sitting and watching one of those conversations in a boardroom, what would it look like? Because essentially you're asking investors who, as you point out, you've been tasked with keeping their money not only safe, but actually increasing it. So if you're talking about then impact versus alpha, what do they look like? How do you convince these investors that it's the right thing to do?
I don't think impact investment and returns are mutually exclusive. I think there is a common sweet spot that you can actually find that you'll get it in the right space. Now, take an example today. If you were trying to invest in a coal plant, yeah, whatever the return that your power purchase agreement will give you is probably not a great idea, right? Yeah, because fundamentally the biggest risk a coal plant actually has is the fact that you will end up with a stranded asset from an investing point of view. Yeah. So when you can start to put those issues on the table, price it into a particular manner, then you become and facilitate thinking in a better form. So if, for example, if I can get investments that give me a fair return, put it in to a sustainable sort of investment. Let's say investing in a solar plant, along the way 6%, 7% return, returning over 30 years, and I get a coal plant of 10% returning over 20 years, where should I put my money? Definitely not in the coal plant per se, because you have not priced at that point that sustainability of that investment point of view. And the ability to translate that into monetary form, price it in along the way, will probably make the solar plant much more attractive in a longer duration time. And that duration of time then matches what I need as an institutional investor.
A huge amount needs to be done, obviously, when it comes to the energy transition across Asia. Much of it is going to depend on innovation, entrepreneurship, where the money is spent, the technology transfer. How can we ensure that that happens in the right way? Is it, from your perspective, from the EPF perspective, by funding the right ideas, the right innovation at whatever stage they are at?
I think when you look at creating investment and so on, there are various stages of investments along the way. Faisal talked about early stage investment. So partnering with different people at different stages of life can probably facilitate growth in a better form. Yeah. So I think the art for EPF is understanding where it wants to play, then connecting with the right groups. So for example, in one of the conundrums that we have is we're trying to feed economic growth within Malaysia with equitable return that matches the requirement of EPF. So we're now venturing into growth private equity investments. To do it, I may not have the expertise to do it in Malaysia, but I can do it if I can partner somebody else. And what we've done, like Khazanah, we've partnered 500 startups, Gobi, and allocated money to them. And that creates a mechanism.
So, Amir, we are just about out of time today, unfortunately. But let me ask you, for all of the investors, the people that are sitting in the room today, if they were to ask you, where should we put our next dollar? If we're talking about investing in, as the title suggests, Asia's just energy transition, what would you say to them?
Put it in me first. Because ultimately my objective is actually to collect money for Malaysians so that we can create the fund to have adequacy for people when they retire. That's my primary objective. But fundamentally, I think from a country point of view, the biggest challenge that we have in the climate change is energy transition. Yeah? And somehow addressing that, because the biggest emission footprint resides in that part, is probably Malaysia's biggest conundrum. And we will have no choice but to transition that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the fabulous dear Samir.
Thank you to Oriel and to Amir for such an engaging and topical discussions. If I could just ask you all to wait here for just a moment for some important announcements.
Some very important announcements before we head out to our morning breakout sessions. The Hasanah Forum session on people and leadership, nurturing courageous leaders, will be held here in Plenary Hall at 11:15 a.m. So please do come back. I hope we'll see you again at 11:15 a.m. Get ready to hear from panelists Dr. J. Satrijo Tanujojo, CEO of Tanoto Foundation, Professor Tan Sri Dr. Jamilah Mahmud, Executive Director, Sunway Center for Planetary Health, Sunway University Malaysia, Tan Sri Abdul Wahid Omar, Chairman of Bursa Malaysia, Dato' Syahira Ahmad Bazari, Trustee and Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah, and moderated by Louis Palford, CEO of Social Innovation Exchange. So please, I hope to see everyone back here at 11:15 a.m. And we look forward to see you here again.
Great. And please, I want to invite all of you to also return here to the Plenary Hall at 1 p.m. for our Inspirate speakers. Again, this is why we all do this work, to work with individuals in the impact space like this. So I really invite you all to come here and hear their stories. 1 p.m., please feel free to bring your lunch with you. I also want to invite you at 11:15 to come to some of the breakout sessions on our 4th floor. You can take a left outside the hall and take the elevator stairs outside. These breakout sessions will begin at 11:15, so please feel free to grab a coffee and network.
And for those joining us online on the live stream, once again, it's 11:15 a.m. that we will kickstart our final forum for the Hasanah Forum session.
Fantastic. I also want to invite all of you to join us again this evening at our networking hall in Ballroom 2 to enjoy a really exciting networking night hosted by Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust in partnership with our partners at Yayasan Hasanah. I also want to call out our membership lounge on 10 on Call on the 4th floor, as well as our AVPN hub there as well. If you have any questions about our agenda, I truly encourage you to download our AVPN events app for the latest updates and connect with your fellow delegates. And with that said, I hope you will post on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, hashtag AVPN 2023, hashtag Global Challenges, Asian Solutions. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Impact Investing Day.
Enjoy the rest of the conference and see you soon.
Bye, everyone.